Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen.
Respectable Mayor of Makassar, this is a proud day for all of us. We are fortunate because we have brought a from Notre Dame
Thank you.
All right. Ohayo gozaimasu. Good morning. I will not speak to you in Japanese.
Not Japanese. Japanese.
So, I'd like to... Is everybody ready? Is everybody ready? Okay. So I'd like to express my deep and sincere thanks to the organizing committee, to everybody involved to bring not only myself but also the other speakers. Many of us have traveled very far to be here, to be at the first ELTIC conference held in conjunction with the University of Muhammadiyah Makassar. So I'm very happy to be here. My topic today is called the missing piece of the puzzle. The missing piece of the puzzle. Is everybody ready? I'll just wait until things quiet down and then we can start. Okay, right, let's start. So my talk today is going to be about what I feel is the missing piece of the puzzle for language education. And the talk is actually in two parts. Today, I'm going to be talking for an hour about this missing piece of the puzzle, but also tomorrow I'll be giving a 2-hour workshop on how to do what I'm going to be talking about. So the talk today is going to start by looking at the big picture of language education in quite simple terms. So let's look and see what does it take to learn a foreign language? Well, of course, we all understand that we need to master the vocabulary, we need to master the grammar, and various other systems to build language knowledge. So let's just start with vocabulary. One of the critical things that we need to understand as language teachers and language learners that's often misunderstood in language education are the two stages of vocabulary learning. The first stage is the form-meaning relationship. I apologize if you cannot see the screen here, but also if you look at the TVs, you can look there. You can download this presentation later. I will give you the link, so you don't need to take pictures of everything. Okay, so the first stage in language learning for vocabulary is this form-meaning relationship. Form, as you know, is the spelling or the sound, and connection to the meaning. So apple is A-P-P-L-E, apple, and we connect it to the meaning, which is, of course, is the red or green fruit. Maybe we got too many mics on. Yes, we have too many mics. All right, is that better? Okay. So that's the first stage. Unfortunately, the vast majority of vocabulary teaching stops at this stage. There's a whole second stage of vocabulary teaching which is missing from a lot of our education, and that's these deeper aspects of vocabulary learning. These deeper aspects of vocabulary learning include how many different meaning senses the word would have, how frequent it is, how you can use it, whether it is what lexical area that it comes from. Is it a nursing word or an engineering word or a science word? Also, whether it's polite or casual, whether it's a rude word, whether it's spoken word or written word. And this is really critical, because if you speak like a book, or if you write like you speak, then it's going to be inappropriate in some circumstances. So casual conversation in a business letter is not appropriate. So it's important that students understand the different genres. On top of that, we also have lexical access speed. How quickly can you find this word? And finally, we have which other words does it go with, the collocations or colligations. So unfortunately, the vast majority of language teaching or vocabulary stops at this stage. And all of this is missing. Now we have various types of vocabulary, and I apologize, you already know this, but I just want to go through quickly. We have individual words, we have derivatives, as you can see here, idioms, and sentence heads. These are all words in a way. These are all words, and they're important aspects of learning vocabulary. They're different types. So these ones we can memorize. If you choose to, you can memorize them using an app, or word cards, or word lists, or something like that. The second part, the collocations and colligations. These ones, some of them you can memorize and some of them are quite difficult, but they have to be often just picked up. There's too many of them. So a typical collocation, you can see here, we say high season, we don't say top season. Yeah, it's a high season for travel, it's a top season for travel. Sounds really strange. Okay? So collocations and colligations. Now some of you may not be familiar with this word colligation. Who does not know colligation? Everybody knows colligation? Wow, okay. So colligation, you can see the G. This refers to the grammatical relationship between words. So we say, agree to do something, not agree doing. Yes? And so similarly we would say, rely on someone, not rely in, not rely for. Okay? These are colligations. Now, how many collocations are there? There are lots of them. So this simple word idea, the word idea, has all of these different collocations. There are lots and lots and lots of them. We say abandon an idea, absorb an idea, accept an idea, adjust to an idea, advocate an idea, and so on and so on and so on. Those are the verbs. These ones here are the adjectives. So when we're talking about mastering the vocabulary in English, if you know even 20 of those, you're very good at English. And what makes me a native speaker is I know these fine differences between a common sense idea and an ingenious idea, an outrageous idea and an absurd idea. I know the fine difference between outdated idea and an elusive idea. That's what makes me a native speaker. If you know 20 or 30 of these, you're very, very good. One of the major problems that people have, particularly at the advanced level of learning language, is knowing how to say things correctly, knowing how to say things with precision, knowing exactly what you want to say. So often, quite often, people even at the advanced level feel childish when you speak. You feel, I can communicate, but I can't say exactly what I want to say. Right? I have maybe in your head, maybe you have 6 or 7 words for big. Right? I have 40. Right? That's what makes me a native speaker. Now, I'm not suggesting that you learn all of these. Of course not. That will take you a lifetime. But just knowing lots of these will make a big difference to you. The question is, how do you pick all these words up? So on top of collocations, we have colligations, which I mentioned before. We say to give something to someone. We don't give something someone. We say depend on, allow someone to do, and so on. We have phrasal verbs, here's a few examples, give in, catch up with, and idioms and lexical expressions. Now, that's the vocabulary. On top of the vocabulary, of course, we have the grammar. Here are some sentences. These are some sentences for the present perfect tense. Maybe you can't read them. Let me read them for you. A government committee has been created. Present perfect tense. He hasn't seen her for a while. Has he? No, he hasn't. Why haven't you been doing your homework? There's been an accident in Market Street. Have you ever flown a plane? Now these all are examples of the present perfect tense. The problem for learners, of course, is it's not very simple. It's not like a vocabulary item where you can just look at it, look in the dictionary, or you can ask the teacher. The problem with grammar is grammar's hiding. You can't see grammar. Now, you and I know that the present perfect tense is have or has plus present participle. You and I know this. But every time you meet the present perfect tense, it comes with a different verb. Here, we have different verbs. We have the verbs create, seen, doing. It also comes with different subjects, it comes with different objects, it comes with different collocations. The other problem for learning the grammar is that sometimes it's simple form, sometimes it's a statement, sometimes negative, sometimes yes-no questions. It could be simple or continuous. It could be active or passive. It could be a short answer or a question tag. It could be regular, as in have or has, versus we have walked and bought, by bought. And of course we have different meaning senses. So we have present perfect for experience, I have been to Makassar. Or present perfect for news, John and Mary are having a have had a baby. Yeah. So learning the grammatical forms is going to take a very, very long time. And my guess is that maybe even some of you here still sometimes struggle with the past simple and the present perfect tense, even though you've been learning English for some time. The point here is that grammar takes a long time. It's late acquired. So the question is, if we are teaching grammar in our course books, and even after many, many years you still haven't quite got it right, are we teaching grammar in the right way? So the question is, how long is it going to take to learn all of this stuff? Well, we do know that in order to learn a word, it takes between 30 to 50 different meetings. You need to meet each word 30 or 50 times in order for it to stay in your head if you're learning from reading. If you're learning from intentional learning, like say vocabulary, word lists, or that kind of thing, it can take 10 or 15. That's still a lot of different times. The collocations and deeper aspects are going to take much, much, much longer. But, interestingly, we have absolutely no idea at all about how long it takes to master a grammatical item. How long does it take to learn the past tense? Nobody knows. How long does it take to master the present perfect tense? Nobody knows. And it's critical that we do know this, because if we know that a word takes 30 to 50 meetings, we can give this input to the students. We can program that. We can put that into our curriculum. If we know the past tense takes 1,000, 5,000 meetings to be learned, we need to make sure in our classes that we are making this input available. I'll come back to talk about that. The question here to ask is it possible to teach all of this? If each word has 2 or 3 meaning senses, with its collocations, with its conjugations, and we meet them in lexical phrases, we meet them in phrasal verbs, and we need to meet the grammar many, many times. The conclusion, there's only one conclusion, which is, it's impossible to teach all of this, to teach all of this. There's just too much stuff. So we need a plan B. So the next thing I want to look at is how do many teachers and students view language learning? At base, what is the language learning theory that many people have? Students, parents, teachers, and many other people. Basically, it's like this. Stamp collecting. The basic idea that many people have when they approach a foreign language, so let's imagine tomorrow you have to learn Japanese. What would you do? Well, you go get a dictionary, you go get some word list maybe, you go get some grammar books, maybe a CD or two. What you do is you learn this word and learn this word and learn this grammar and learn this word and learn this grammar, like you collect stamps. That's what most people do. And our teaching reflects that. I'll come back to talk about that. Another way to see this theory of language learning is to imagine that language learning is like building a wall. The idea is, again, as a good student, as a good teacher, you will either learn or you will teach an item. So you pick up some words. For example, we have the word book. Then the next lesson will teach some grammar, maybe the be verb, and then we'll teach some other words. And the idea is, we keep teaching, we keep learning, eventually we have enough bricks in our wall, we have enough pieces in our wall that we've finished learning English. That's the basic theory many people have of how we learn and how we teach languages. Pick up the pieces and then we're done. The problem comes that when a student needs to communicate, what happens? The wall falls down, right? It's hard to communicate. Why is it hard to communicate? Because the information is all separate and discrete. It's a piece of knowledge, 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 but it's not connected. So, when we're learning a language, we need to not only have our wall of bricks, we need our knowledge, but we also need something else. When you build a wall, you need two things: bricks and cement. The missing piece of the puzzle is that cement. What happens is students need to see how things go together. So we would say, for example, as you can see here, we know that we say yellow car, but we say blonde hair. We would say get out of a car. We don't say get out car. We don't say get from car, right? We say go buy bus. We need to buy something, not need buying. So this network knowledge, knowing how the pieces fit together, is something we need to develop. And in language teaching terms, this is the missing piece of the puzzle. I want to now talk a little bit more about this. I've talked about what to do, but I want to now talk about how is a typical course structured. And I don't mean just course books, but the way that we structure learning. How do we structure learning? It often looks like this. Let's imagine you're teaching language to first-year students, very first class. You have your course book or your textbook, or maybe you have written a course, and it probably looks something like this. Unit 1 will start with the be verb, and maybe some simple adjectives like I'm hot, she's cold, they are tired. Okay, that's Unit 1. Unit 2 would have maybe the present simple tense, and maybe some daily activities. I get up at 7 o'clock, I go downstairs, I have my breakfast, I go to school, Unit 3 would have the present continuous tense, maybe some sporting words. Unit 4 would have can and abilities. I can ride a horse, I can't swim. And Unit 5. Now I want you to notice something very important about the structure here. Here, I'm talking about the grammar and vocabulary, but this could be reading skills. It could be skimming, scanning, guessing from paragraph, working with headlines, The structure's the same. Pronunciation. here you may be A, E, we might have double consonants, for example, and so on and so on. A lot of the way we structure our knowledge is this style. Is the way you teach in this way? What does it say? What is this basic theory of presentation? It says, it's a linear thing. It says, we're going to teach new grammar, new grammar, new grammar, new grammar, new grammar, new grammar, new vocabulary, new vocabulary, new vocabulary, new vocabulary, new. Right? Go on forever. What's the theory underlying this? The theory is, well, we know that these everyday activities, getting up and cleaning your teeth, they're not going to come again later in a unit on travel. They're not going to come again on a unit on information technology. Read them one time. We call this one-hit learning. And it's a linear syllabus. The basic theory here is, we have taught this, therefore students have learned this, they will not make a mistake, they will not forget, therefore we can continue. That's the basic design that underlines this structure. It says, teaching causes learning. I teach it, therefore they learned it. In the real world, is that true? Do they learn it? Well, let's look at the strongest finding in educational psychology. And I'm talking about education in general here. I'm not talking about language education, I'm talking about any form of education. The strongest finding, we've known for 150 years about this, but we ignore it. What it says is, if we have knowledge today and over time, if I teach your students 20 new words today, how many of those words will they remember tomorrow? 5? Oh my gosh. How about next week?
Down to 3.
Next month? The end of the course? If you remember one thing today, I want you to remember that. It has a special name. It's called the forgetting curve. Everything you do in your classroom should fight this. You should fight this all the time. Because we're always forgetting. So, for example, can you think of 3 new English words you learned this week? No? Can you remember the name of all of your students from last year? What did you have for breakfast on August the 17th? So the point here is we all forget. It's not because you're a bad teacher that students forget. It's because it's natural and it's normal to forget. But our courses are not structured against this. So what happens to the information in our course? That's what happens. So by the end of the course, down here, you've got a student who is studying for the end of semester test. At the end of semester test, tomorrow, the student thinks, I love my class. My class was great, my teacher was great, I love my course book, I got 10 out of 10 on every test. Tomorrow, test's going to be easy. So the student says, oh, I'll just look at my book again. Opens the book. Huh? Have you ever looked in a dictionary, looking for a word you don't know? Open the dictionary, find the red pen. Have you done that? So what does the student think then? They say, well, something's wrong here. How can I not remember this? Because I have a great teacher, great textbook, everything went well, I got 10 out of 10. There must be something wrong. I know what's wrong, says the student. It's me. I'm the stupid one. I'm no good at English. And this is how we kill a love of English. this is how we kill motivation. This design is not building and strengthening knowledge. It's one-hit learning that absolutely is going to get forgotten. We'll come back to talk about that, right? So why can't students often read, write, and listen well? I hear this question wherever I go. I heard it last week recently in Japan, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Brazil. I hear the same question. And the main reason is that there's too much work on the pieces of language. Too many bricks, too many stamps, and nothing to connect them. The language learning is often abstract and easy to forget, and so the information is lost. There's not enough comprehensible, meaningful discourse. Not enough comprehensible input. And the students need to meet the word enough times, but they're not meeting the grammar and vocabulary enough times. I've already explained to you that we need to meet each word 30 to 50 times. In our course, maybe only 2 or 3 times a word will be taught. So naturally, we're going to be forgetting. So, the other thing too is the students haven't developed a sense of language. Why is this important? Before we talked about collocation. Why do we say blonde hair, we don't say yellow hair? Why do we say beautiful girl, we don't say handsome girl? Why? Because it feels right. Yeah? How did you get that feeling? Did a teacher tell you? No, probably not. How do you know we say high season, not top season? Right? Because over time, you've met the language enough time to get a feeling of what's right and a feeling of what's wrong. And this is critical for speaking and writing. Because if you can't feel whether something is right or feel whether something is wrong, you will not use it. It only comes out in your production when you start to feel comfortable. I have enough knowledge of this that now I can use it. Why can't they speak? Because they haven't met the language enough. They don't have enough experience. They've been meeting language taught in a linear syllabus that has forgetting. And it doesn't have the depth of knowledge, doesn't have the consolidation, the strengthening of that knowledge for long-term acquisition. So, what do students need to do to learn a foreign language? So, if I ask you now, just think for a moment or two about some activities that you do as a language learner, or you do as a teacher. What kind of things do you do? Just think for a moment. What do you do in class? Maybe you teach some grammar, maybe you do some vocabulary, maybe you help people with their writing, maybe they do some translation. Just think of a few things. I have a few example activities for you here, and I'm sorry this is very small, but I'm going to try and read some of them to you. We have, over here, explicit teaching, dictionary work, grammar book, course book reading, language awareness activities, conscious word learning. Language and pronunciation drills, gap fill exercises, memorized dialogues, sentence completion tasks, and tests. Down here, easy reading, easy listening, watching movies, browsing the internet, listening to the radio or music, free language production activities like chatting, casual conversations, debates, discussions, and so on. So, time to think. What's the difference between left and right? What's the difference between left and right? Can you see? Can you think? Okay, so we've got receptive and productive. Okay, input and output, right? Now, what about the top and bottom? What's the difference? This is much more difficult. Here we've got easy reading, movies, internet. Top here, we've got difficult reading, dictionary work, gap fill exercises, tests, and so on. Is anybody? What's the difference, top and bottom? Okay, oh, teaching and acquiring, not quite what I would say, but very close. Let me give you my answer. My answer here is language-focused learning. When you're teaching something, the idea is, I want to learn this, and I'm going to practice this. The bottom part here is about communication, meaning, and fluency. Okay? So I call this the balanced curriculum. And this framework is something that you can use to look at your classes. Do you have balance in your room, in your classroom? Do you have grammar? Do you have some tests? Do you have casual conversations? Do you have easy reading and easy listening? So one way to look at this is to look at things in terms of balance. So let's just look a bit more carefully. What's this top row all about? What's this all about? This is about gathering language knowledge. Pieces of information. Learning a piece of grammar, learning a bit of vocabulary. Learning a reading skill. So this is about gaining language knowledge or learning some strategies. The bottom part is about developing skills. The actual skill of speaking, the skill of writing, the skill of reading and listening and so on. And the idea is, at the bottom part, is to develop automatic processing of that knowledge. To get faster and better, more fluent at speaking, more fluent at reading, more fluent at listening. So we have a big distinction. And you can make a connection to that in your real life. Who here has a driving license? Nobody? A few people have a driving license. It's the same idea. When you learn to drive, somebody gives you a rule book, grammar book, dictionary. Somebody sits next to you and teaches you what to do and checks you know what you're doing, like a language test, in a controlled environment. Down here, when you're ready, you can drive by yourself. Similarly, learning a piano. Somebody teaches you, here you listen to a famous piano player, and here you're playing by yourself. Same basic idea. Here, for baseball, baseball in the nets, playing the game. Football, exactly the same. A coach teaches you what to do, and here you're playing the game. 7-year-old students can understand this concept. The difference between language-focused work and skill-focused work. One's about knowledge and so on. So let's look at each of these boxes in detail. What are they trying to do? This first box on the top here, this is the input language focus, is about building new knowledge. It's about raising awareness of language learning activities and strategies. Here, this is checking understanding. Here we teach something, here we check, do the students know it? Often this is one correct answer, they have to gap fill exercise, maybe an A-B dialogue. And it's about accuracy. Can the students get accurate control over language learning? Down the bottom here, this is about getting a feeling for language from massive input. Lots and lots of reading, lots and lots of listening, focused on communication. And they build up this experience with knowledge, the part that I mentioned before. Down the bottom gives real-time opportunities to experiment with language knowledge. Okay? And for them to build fluency. So each of these boxes does different things. We have box 1, language focus input, language focus output, communication input, communication output. So what's this one? Which box is that one? Go back. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one? Box? Which one? Language focused learning. So this is box 1, the first box, right? What about this one? Reading a newspaper. Is it language focused or communication focused? Communication. Communication. Input, output. Okay, so 3. What about this one? Using a dictionary.
Input.
Language focused input. Okay? Gap fill exercise. Is this about communication? No. It's language focus, right? Language, so this is box 2, language focused output. Flashcards. This one? Okay, I see. Okay. Flashcards. Language focus input. How about this one? Writing out lines. Repeating. This is language control output. Yes? Giving a presentation. It's about communication output. Okay, writing a journal. Communication. Alright, this is a grammar book. This is teaching you the grammar. Language focus, input. This is the testing of that knowledge. Language focus, output. Talking together. Communication, so this is listening and speaking, right? Okay. Writing an essay. A-B dialogue. Communication or language? Really? Whose words are this? Are they the students' words? No. These are words from the course book, right? So this is just repeating what somebody else has written. This is not about my language. This is because everybody turns the page at the same time, right? So all the students are in sync together. Now, I just said all the students are in sync. Is that really true? Because if you have a class of 40 students, you're going to have maybe 5 of those students, your class is too easy, right? They're just better students, and so you've lost them. You've got another maybe 20% at the bottom who's like, huh? You've lost them as well. So in this type of course, you're only really teaching in the middle. And if your course book has, say, 12 units on different themes, maybe travel or music or sports or something, are all the units going to attract everybody? No. They're going to like some but not the other. The problem with a course book is that very often you're actually only teaching a small set inside your large class, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with course books. I love course books. I've written course books. The problem that you get is course books are not the only answer. We need to do more than the course book. We need to make also a distinction between learning to read and reading to learn. So, learning to read is this language focus work. Learning the spelling, learning how sounds match spellings, building up vocabulary, building up some basic vocabulary and some grammar and so on. To learn a few of the things, to master the skill. So we need to build up some of the reading skills, we need to teach maybe skimming, scanning, guessing from paragraph and so on. And here, in this part, reading is seen as a language practice activity. It's a language focus activity. But reading to learn has a different focus. That has a communication focus. Here, the reading is to learn something. So here, when students are learning to read naturally, they are trying to build reading speed, they're trying to build fluency, they're trying to build enjoyment, and of course, a reading habit. So we have to make this distinction between the two kinds of reading. One type is language-focused work, and the other one is about communication. If we want students to read quickly, and we want them to read smoothly, if we want them to read communicatively, it's going to be difficult if their eye is slowed down by new words and new grammar. So, students to read communicatively and read naturally must be reading at the right level. So it's crucial that students are reading at the right level. R-E-A-D. When students choose material for reading fluency, developing reading speed, reading naturally, box 3 down the bottom, then they need to read something quickly and enjoyably with adequate comprehension so they don't need a dictionary. R-E-A-D. Can you please repeat after me? Read something quickly and enjoyably with adequate comprehension so they don't need a dictionary. One more time. One more time, let's go back. Read something quickly and enjoyably with adequate comprehension so they don't need an dictionary. Got it? Okay, let's go.
Don't need dictionary.
I can't hear. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. So my point here is, we do a lot of the language-focused reading. We do a lot of it, maybe too much of the language-focused reading. So we need to build this language fluency. So what do students need? If we want them to learn to build reading speed and fluency, do we need them to read? Do we need books with rare words, or have random selection? Books that are standalone, or books that are hard and difficult or slow reading? Or do we need to have material which is useful, high frequency words, that consolidates and strengthens language, that works together as a system, the books work together as a system, and that help reading smoothly and easily, and they can read quickly with confidence. So which do they need? Left or right? When you want to build reading speed and fluency, is it this one or this one? Left or right?
Right. Right.
Right. Well, clearly, right is what we need. 30 minutes. Okay, so, let me ask you, how's your reading of Harry Potter? Easy? How about reading Time magazine? Easy? Do you need a dictionary? Can you R-E-A-D? How about scientific journals? Alright. How about watching YouTube videos? Easy? In English? Really? So can you watch American movies without subtitles? Yes and no. Okay. Alright. So let's look at our balanced curriculum. Where are these things down here? Where are these things down here? They're down the bottom there, watching movies, browsing the internet. But for many, many people, these are not communication. They are language study. You need a dictionary. You need to slow down. You need to have a teacher, or you just throw it away. It's too difficult, right? So very often, these things actually come up here. So we have to choose text at the right level. So here we have an empty space. This is our missing piece of the puzzle. We call it extensive reading. Extensive reading is the missing piece of the puzzle. Who's heard of extensive reading? Okay, a few people. Alright. So, what is extensive reading? That's extensive reading. That's extensive reading. Don't you love this picture? That's extensive reading. What's in their hand? What's in their hand? A book. Right? That's extensive reading. That's extensive reading. That's extensive reading. What about this? What's in the hand? Pencil. So the question is, if you want to know if your students are reading intensively, they probably have a pen in their hand. If they're reading extensively, they probably have a book in their hand. Alright? And that's an easy distinction for us. Right? So we call this language study reading.